Here on the EquiRatings Eventing podcast, we have teamed up with our very good friends over at BedMax, as well as our very own Spike the Vet, to give you guys, our lovely listeners, some tip-top tips. And let me tell you, listeners, that is quite a mouthful to say. We are on take number 55, approximately. Spike, what have you got for us today?
Oh, Nicole, I've got another top tip for you. What we're looking at this time is that really important thing of ensuring that even though you're using brilliant bedding like BedMax, it's what you're doing day to day to look after that bedding and how often you're changing it, how deep that bedding is. Got to have a really good level of bedding in there to make sure that we are in a position of not having abrasions happening on hocks, sore areas on hooves, damaging coronary bands. We need to be making sure that we're changing that bedding really regularly. And also we're really trying to avoid that build-up of that horrible, horrible ammonia smell that we can get in stables.
So keeping it really clean. What is so awful about ammonia apart from the really bad smell?
Well, ammonia is that real like jarring and cloying smell that catches at the back of your throat. And that is very, very inflammatory in horses' airways. It causes damage to the mucosa. And then that is how we then get secondary bacterial infections. And then suddenly we've got a coughing, ill horse. And something as simple as ensuring that we have a really, really clean and safe environment for the horse will undoubtedly reduce the risk of you and your horse seeing the vet more often.
There you go. Another brilliant top tip. Thank you, Spike.
Thank you, Nicole. Always here with more top tips.
Today's show, listeners, I think is one of the most popular shows we have ever done. It was the start of When Nicole Met, right back in the early days of the series, 2020. So it was the year of COVID, and it is When Nicole Met Piggy. Now, Piggy wears her heart on her sleeve anyway. She is an incredible character, a great competitor, a thoroughly nice person, and very honest. And this show gives you a real insight into her career to that point. And I definitely, if you're going to listen to a show today, listen to this one, because I think you'll absolutely love it.
Welcome to the EquiRatings Eventing podcast. And listeners, our guest on today's show is absolutely brilliant, if I may say so myself. She had an incredible season. She won badminton. She is the reigning badminton champion, but she also set a record, which we love at EquiRatings, with 15 international wins last year, more than any other rider in the last decade. Welcome to the show, Piggy March.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Piggy. Now, what we thought we would do is, can we go back to the beginning? And we'll come on to sort of your recent career a little bit later on in the show, but go back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about your childhood. Were you born into a horsey family? Were ponies something that you loved very early on?
Yes, I was born into a horsey family. My mum evented herself up to advanced level, and we were just, brought up very fortunately to always have a pony, have some fields, always at our house. We did everything from, very young. I think I was on a horse, obviously, before I could walk or anything, and did all the pony club things and all round things, and hunting, everything. So we were very fortunate to have that as our lifestyle of growing up. So I was very lucky.
When did you decide that actually that was something you wanted to do for a career?
I was absolutely hopeless at school, and my exam results were dreadful, like embarrassingly bad, and my dad was adamant that I had to get some sort of qualification, so he sent me back for retakes, which were marginally better, but still not, to get me anywhere. And I think he just realized that it was my passion. There was nothing else that I wanted to do at all. I was very keen on proving to him that I will make it work. I'll find my job. I will make it happen myself. I didn't sit there and say, Mummy, Daddy, I want a string of 5 10 event horses, and I want to, this is what I want to do. And I just loved eventing as a sport. I was a massive fan of Mary King. I used to stalk her regularly growing up.
Me too,
And
Piggy, me too.
write her letters all the time and ever draw her pictures and God knows what else. But so I just was a massive fan of eventing and just working with horses. I wasn't particularly, I don't think, a very talented child, or I wasn't very brave. I wasn't, I just loved working with horses and just saying you could always try and get the best out of whatever horse you had or situation you had. And I think that sort of stuck, and we went from there. But it didn't, I mean, thank goodness I have been lucky enough to have a career doing what I like, because God only knows what I would have done if it hadn't worked out.
Tell us a little bit about Flintlock, because he was the horse that you sort of first got the taste of representing your country at the Young Rider Europeans, but actually gave you your 5-star debut, or 4-star as it was then. Is that right?
Yes, it was indeed. It was a real lovely sort of fairy tale story of a very good friend of mine. Went to university. I obviously didn't. He was a horse brought for her just to do novices and be a hunter. And so she just sort of asked while she was away at university if I could keep him ticking over and do some novices with him. And she ended up sort of getting quite involved in university and not coming back to ride at all. So we just, tried his first intermediate, and he was always a very honest cross-country horse. The other 2 phases weren't always the best, but he was absolutely, he was just very honest and charming. Prudy Finch, who owns him, she was like a second mum to us, really good family friends, and we just kept sort of plugging along. And I never did any of the ponies, juniors or young riders, to be honest. Was never in that system, or had the horses, or just wasn't involved in it at all. So I was just competing at that level the last year I did it, and I think a few had fallen by the wayside, and we got a call up, which was incredible and such a cool experience. And it pissed with rain all week. We went to Warwick, the Young Rider European, and which came into our favour because we trudged on round in the mud, and finished 4th individually and best of the Brits, and we won team gold. So it was a real fairy tale week, and such good fun. And he kept just chugging on, and he did my first Badminton, again a very wet year, and just after I'd been, they then took out 2 or 3 fences that year because it was getting so wet and dangerous, so they had to remove some. And he did Burley a couple of times as well, so I owe him absolutely masses. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun. It was a real nice little everything about it, sort of from just being family, friends, and very close network, and a lot to thank the horse for. It was fun.
And to take you through, I mean, it is the fairy tale, isn't it, of actually the horse that was just meant to be a hunter taking you round a 5-star.
I know, totally. And we got a wild card to go to Burley because I'd only done Bramham, was my only 3-star, old 3-star, new 4-star long. And I think I'd got noughts in my dressage test because I couldn't do a flying change, so I did trot changes and then cantered round the wrong way, and they didn't ring the bell, but they thought I was just doing the movement not right. So I was like,
You're like, no, I meant to do it.
Oh my goodness. And then so I was last after dressage, and then, but he did jump clear around the cross country, and I had a couple of rails, I think. So, but I hadn't got a qualifying mark, and we entered Burley, and I got a wild card. Myself and Matthew Wright got a wild card that year, and something they don't do now. But which was great excitement, but I've never been so terrified in my whole life when I got there and walked the course. It doesn't help that I had a best mate of mine was 5 foot tall, and she came with me all week and walked the course with me, and she could just walk under the jumps and all the rest of it. So it wasn't very helpful, but yeah, so I thought it was the most terrifying thing ever. But he just chugged on round every time, bless him. And it was great.
Jump clear.
It was great. It was he was very he jumped clear every time. He was always clear cross country. We never got flying changes. That was the beginning of when changes first came in, and that was all. But who cares? It was in those days. It was the experience. And it was just what you needed. And I think it is very valuable, and I think to have a good cross country horse to give you the miles is important, and put such good grounding on you and just gets the miles into you, which I think some young riders nowadays are probably a bit scared of going to of having that just a really good cross country horse to get the miles in, rather than always the being so competitive or thinking that they need to be winning the dressage and everything. To me, he wasn't a dressage horse. He wasn't the greatest show jumper, but it was invaluable having a very good, safe cross-country horse that, we grew together, and he showed me the way.
And I'm sure he taught you so much from those sort of early rounds that actually now stand you in brilliant stead.
Well, yes, he has to have done, really. But he was a lovely horse. He was an odd horse, but he was a lovely horse.
So Flintlock took you to your first 5-star, which was back in 2002, but you had a couple of other horses at a similar sort of level, done to order, and you sort of continued to kind of establish yourself at the very, very top level over the next couple of years. Can I ask you then, if we fast forward slightly to, I suppose, 2009 would have been your first senior call up to the Europeans in Fontainebleau, is that right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you about the actual call up? Because the rumour I heard was that you were in the start box at Burghley and the phone went. Well, I don't think you actually were exactly in the start box, but it was pretty close, because Burghley was a couple of weeks before the Europeans, and it was a sort of a late call up that you got to go to Fontainebleau, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was really close, and it was a massive surprise. I had Someday Soon for that season. He had a 3rd place at Bramham. I remember when I had the phone call from Yogi to say I was put on the long list for the Europeans. I thought that was pretty cool and very exciting. But obviously, I would have been a million miles from ever getting near the team with him. But just to have that phone call in itself was pretty cool. And then I went to Burghley with him and did a dreadful dressage test. I think he got the tongue over the bit and was flopping that about, and he was quite a spooky horse, and I don't think I did very well anyway. So that was I think I got a grand old score of like 62 or something in the old scoring system.
60.5.
Oh, 60.5. Okay, so it wasn't far off. It was pretty bad anyway. And so I just went back to the wagon and was sat in there with one of the owners, Sue Crane, just sat in the wagon, just sort of going over it, thinking that was a bit disappointing, but never mind. And then Yogi came to my wagon and knocked on the door and said, Mary King's horse has gone lame, and we were wondering if you would like to come to the Europeans as a reserve. I was like, oh my God, I think I even nearly hugged him or something. Very random and ridiculous. But I was completely overwhelmed. I was just like, oh my God, I don't believe it. So Sue was there too, which she was a very good supporter of me in my early days. And so the excitement, was quite overwhelming, very, very exciting. A bit of a whirlwind for the next 2 weeks of being sent kit and things, which was actually all Mary's kit, which was for me quite weird because I idolised Mary so much. So everything arrived to me with Mary King written all over it. So
I was going to say that must have been your 12-year-old self's dream.
Yeah,
at that point.
It was. It was indeed. I didn't fit anything very well. I think I was a bit of a little dweeb, and but it was amazing. It was amazing. It was incredibly exciting. So I did my first team training, which I just remember it being down at William Foxpits, and it was hammering it down with rain, and we were running through the dressage test, and we had FEI judges there, and they were all sat at the end of the arena under umbrellas. Well, my horse he was such a spooky horse. And I just remember in the training, I couldn't get him from anywhere from halfway up the arena to the top end. And I was actually quite embarrassed sort of the whole 2 days I was there for team training. And but anyway, I just thought, let's go and stay in our bubble. We knew we were a reserve. So I was like, just got to go and get the experience. But, we're naturally competitive. And so we just thought we'll just go and, stay in our little bubble and do what we can. And, to be fair to the horse, I mean, he was absolutely amazing when he got there. Lots didn't suit him. It was firm ground. It was a pretty hectic, twisty track, and he's a 17-1 great big horse. There was lots about the whole thing that was, wouldn't in my wildest dreams have thought he would have excelled like he did. And I think it was one of 2 clears, jumping on the last day and everything like that. So it was, we won a medal, and we're quite close to, quite close to Tina as well. So it was absolutely incredible. But I had such a wild card to get there, to have that call up at the last moment, and I was just desperate not to go out there and look an absolute idiot. But do our own thing, and so proud of the horse. I mean, it was his last. He was an older horse on older legs, and it was the last real thing I managed to get out of him. But just incredible, and so exciting for all connections, and made me very hungry of trying to get back on teams again.
I mean, in terms of being very close to Tina, it was the year that Tina Cook Miners Frolic won their European title, and she actually had 4 time penalties in the show jumping. If she'd have had 5, so that could have been a fraction of a second, you would have won the individual gold. But the horse in 3rd place, I mean, some podium, the horse in 3rd place that you beat, Michael Young's Le Biestatique Sam, who was at his first championships, and you went, and then of course went on to win 2 individual gold medals at the Olympics. So it was an incredible podium. Going away from sort of Fontainebleau over the next couple of years, it was a sort of a golden patch in terms of the lead up to London 2012. At that point, did you think, do you know what, actually London 2012, this is a possibility?
Yes, definitely. Well, it was an aim, and I think we all need aims. We all need goals, and something to really work towards. And I was very lucky with the support I had from my dad and Michael Underwood, who were great friends. And so we thought that we would go and try and find something, bearing in mind we still had a few years to go, that wasn't the Olympic price tags, because there's no way we could have done anything like that, but try to find something that, was just had checkered form or at the right age, or something that was, we could afford it. And so, we got a few horses, of which Jakarta and DHI Topper W were 2 of them, and so it was good timing of those few years to try and build them up. Realistically, it could have been another fairy tale, but it obviously wasn't.
It wasn't to be. I mean, that sort of, 2009 was your senior debut. 2010 was the World Games with Jakarta in Kentucky. 2nd place at Badminton the following spring again with Jakarta, which was your well, at the time, your best placing at 5-star level. Everything was going as it should have gone at that point. DHI Topple W won the London test event. What was your experience at the test event? How did that, because it was very much at that stage, Greenwich Park was a little bit of uncertainty as to how it was going to play out. What was your sort of thoughts taking away from that?
I thought just how much of an amazing event it was going to be. Having been at the test event, I could really see it would have worked well. On a personal note, I think I obviously did win it there with Topper W, but it was just a CIC 2-star event. But then the locals had put banners up when I came out their boards and were protesting, and one of the boards said, Piggy, please go home. Please go home, Piggy.
Oh,
and things like that. Because they didn't want the Olympics there, and I'd obviously won. They were actually very nice people there, because I walked out and was like, oh my goodness. And they actually gave me the banner, which I still have. So that was quite a weird memory of the test event. But just such an amazing setting, and amazing, they were obviously doing everything that was just going to make it as fantastic as it actually was. And obviously being in London, home ground, and all the rest of it, I mean, what a spectacle. And it ended up being a fantastic event. But we were all pretty excited there at the test event. We thought this was going to work very well and be a great show.
Talk us through 2012, because it had been a really brilliant couple of years, and I suppose 2012 it started off really well. Jakarta and Topper W were both in very good form, but I suppose then it was an example of, actually, with horses, things go wrong, and sometimes there's just no turning the tide.
No, it's not. And I mean, 2011 was definitely the best year of my career by far. And I remember joking at the end of the year that I'd peaked a year early, and but you get on with it. But I just felt I came into 2012 with everything to lose rather than anything to gain a little bit. And I was still sort of maybe a little bit naive, or suddenly come to the top of the sport over 2 or 3 years, and it was all a bit of a whirlwind. And but I mean, looking back on it, 2012, Badminton got cancelled. They were on great form, and I mean, I was, there were 2 lovely horses that I knew inside out and would have taken either of them. Deep down, I thought Topper W probably suited the terrain easier, that sort of competition easier. He had a wonderful mentality for, with the atmosphere. And he wasn't a puller at all, where Jakarta could get quite strong up and down hills. So, it was very realistically the aim. Badminton got cancelled. Then Houghton, we went to Houghton instead. And I was very much on the lines, I wanted to go there to do well. I wasn't just wanting to just get to the Olympics and be there to say, I've got to an Olympic Games. In my mind, I knew that I had 2 very good horses, and, it's a lot, I was definitely in the zone mentally. My life revolved around these 2 horses all year. And so we headed to Houghton. I thought I wanted to, the selection was not long afterwards. And I just thought I wanted them both to give one good solid run, to know that I was, where they should have been. And Jakarta was amazing. He led the dressage, I think, or was thereabouts, and finished on it. And I'd really sorted out the bridle with him. He just had a rubber gag and took the flash strap off, just simple things. And I mean, he was incredible and made such a difference, and got the time easily. But I just remember after the second last cross-country fence, just on the flat, on the turn, he did a stumble for 2 strides, and my heart was in my mouth. I was just like, gosh, A, to nearly fall over, but B, be like, God, don't do anything, for goodness sake. Anyway, finished the round and he pulled up absolutely fine and was trotting up really sound, but a very small wingle just appeared on his front leg. Really small, but he had really clean legs. And, for 2 weeks, we gave him 2 weeks quiet, because I wasn't really going to do much more before then, probably a couple of quiet runs or whatever. And just when I started working him and getting back on the circle, it was just very slightly, intermittently, a little bit off. Anyway, we scans and x-rays were all good, but on the MRI there was a little tear in his pastern, so he had to be operated on. So that was him out. And then Topper was then obviously selected. So he then went to Barbary as his last run, ran the 2-star just quietly. And I thought he was on great form. I just went for a canter round because it's obviously, it's summer ground, and but I just wanted him somewhere with atmosphere and everyone was there and to do it. And I thought the place would suit him and things. And so he went round a 2-star with 7 or 10 time vaults or something, and then had heat in his leg the next day, which was a small tendon injury. It was the day that torch came through our village, because it wasn't far off, was it, Barbary? We had the Olympic torch come through our village, and 2 days after that we were collecting our kit, and oh God, it was fairly desperate. It still makes my my stomach sink now, and not just like, everyone's heard it already, so it's like, get the violin out and off we go again. But it was just desperate. And for Mike and my dad, the whole team, everything, it's London, it's your hometown Olympics and that, and it's just your once in a lifetime dream on such amazing, wonderful horses that you've worked hard with for a few years, and it's an absolute chance in a lifetime that was gone. And so it was absolutely heartbreaking. I was, went through so many emotions of, so desperately sad, so sad for so many people around you, bloody angry. I couldn't get it. I affected me quite a lot mentally, a little bit, and afterwards as well, I had, which we'll obviously get to, but the horse the next year was injured as well. And I think mentally I did struggle with a lot of how to go forward from here, what, why, how, and just being, loving what you do and being able to dare to dream again, sort of thing, was what I found really very difficult. But the Olympics went on. It was an amazing competition. I sat there probably drowning in whiskey or something throughout the months that it went on.
Don't blame you.
It was an incredible competition to watch, and all the athletes, and they're from all sports. I mean, I love sport at top level. Any sport at top level is fantastic. You've got so much admiration for anyone doing their own sports at any level. So it was quite it was, you put your face on, you work. This is our life, this is our business. We can't sit there, you just got to move on. It was definitely probably putting a face on for a while rather than what was behind the covers, but we did move on. And Mike Underwood, being the amazing person that he was, said that he would love to try and find another horse that was at that level, bearing in mind both of those horses would have taken a bit of time out. And he went, and we found a little horse called Tinker's Time, who Harry Mead had been riding, that was at 3-star level, advanced level. And my dad was out. He'd done all he could. He was purely supporting me to London, and so he was to be no more. And so Mike was keen to to go again. And we found Tinker's Time, and he brought it himself outright, and he was a gorgeous little horse. And so this was really exciting. This was the first horse that I had brought at that, running around at that level successfully and being, all very exciting. And he won Osberton at the end of 2012. And then the next year came out, and we went to Samura, and I think it was third or fourth. And then won at Barbary in the 3-star. And the selection came out that night, which it didn't used to do, which they don't do now anyway, but they used to put selection out straight away. And the next morning he was lame. He had heat in his leg and came out lame. So that was 3 championship horses in 12 months. And just to, just to go out to the horse's stable, and I was wired that night anyway. Selection had been out. I had so many messages from so many people saying, I'm so glad you didn't give up, and I'm so glad, your luck would change, and all the rest of it. And your time, I think we were going to go to Malmo, and just great for the team and everything. And the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was jumped out of bed and went to the stable. So I was like, before anyone else got there, and whacked the bandages off. And there was a little bit of more heat in one leg, and he trotted up. He was okay, but in giving him an hour, stood there without his bandages on, and it just started to just sort of feel a little bit of swelling, little bit tender on it. And I was like, you are kidding me. So yes, we had the vet out, and to ring Yogi and ring the owner was just, I was just beyond numb, to be honest. I didn't know what to say or how to say it. And Michael Underwood was the most amazing person I think I have ever known as an owner for me at those times. Never one bad thing said, and nothing but, just being so wonderful, to be honest. But, so disappointed. And I would have just loved to have just done something, had a moment for him at that sort of level, because that's what he just loved so much. He sadly passed away last year, which was fairly desperate, but he was an amazing man for me. And that was a really, really bad moment. Then I did go pretty bloody nuts, I have to say, of knowing how to, what do you do now? Where do you go now?
What did you do? Because obviously that is an unbelievably difficult roller coaster to go through over sort of 12-18 month period. Yeah. Did you think, do you know what, I'm not sure I want to do this?
Yeah, definitely, without doubt. But it's what I do, and what else do you do? And it is, probably the love of horses that eventually did bring it back round. It did take time. I'd fallen out of love with the sport and what I was doing. Nothing, you couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was, but it was just that scaring to dream, or what's the point? Is there any justice in this? Or what, when you try, obviously you try so hard, you think that you do everything you possibly can for your horses, but, it just happens. But it just happened to me, or, it's such a high profile time, and also, for everybody to see. So it was just a lot of negativity, a lot of fingers pointing, just little things. It's your business as well, so sponsors, owners were keen, mine's going to be next. There's just a lot. Well, there's the saying, isn't there, that people knock you when you're down. And but it's, it was, you just had to get on with it. I never fell out with anyone taking their horse because their horse was next to go. It's like, I'm very sorry you feel like this, and good luck with them in the future. And you just had to stay professional and keep doing it and put your face on, like I keep saying. But behind it all, it was fairly desperate. I had lots of would wake up in the night sweating and crying because I was just forever dreaming of another lame horse or another something. It just took time. Yes, I tried a few sports psychiatrists and things like that. I wasn't really, they must have probably helped because I went in and yelled at them and blubbed for an hour. And
Came
probably
out the
behaved
other side.
yeah, probably behaved like an absolute bloody lunatic, but I think I did come out and for some reason feel better. And I think it was always quite good talking to someone who you really don't know and you know isn't going to be, you know, ringing you every day, seeing if you're okay and all that sort of
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And you know, just it was helpful. But always when I went back to do the second one, I was like, no, I'm fine. But then a few weeks later, I'd have a friend say, "You need to go and see someone. You need some help." So
And
they'd
just
book me
do
in
a
someone.
different one. What can you remember a turning point of actually a result or a feeling whereby actually you thought, do you know what, the tide is turning now, things are going
Yeah.
back in?
I was definitely just I got a bit desperate to try and get back up to the top after that, and that was a bad place to be. I was unhappy. I was not thinking that clear. I was desperate to just prove to people that I can look after horses or I can get back up to the top level. And I just think that, you know, I then was riding under too much pressure. I over pressurized myself, and it wasn't going well. And I just felt like I was getting a bit desperate, and so that's when Tom came into my life. To be honest, Tom March, who was on the yard. We didn't really have many staff, and he was, you know, he was just there. He just became, you know, a best friend of mine without really realizing it. He took, you know, he took quite a lot of. He was just always there at the events, to come and try and help out. Like I said, we didn't really have many staff, and he just, you know, became a best friend of mine, to be honest. And he was only there for a year to go into racing. And when it was time for him to go and do the racing, then I realised sort of that I'd be very sad if he went. So he sort of thought that he might be sad if he went too.
Oh, I love a love story.
Oh God. But
So
anyway,
what year was that?
That was 13.
13.
2013.
Okay.
So the winter of 2012, he was there on the yard, and then in 2013 he was meant to then go racing, and we then moved yards. We moved yards to our yard now in 2013. So that was an exciting moment to be offered. You know, it wasn't all bad. You know, the Kears who own our yard now were built this in 2013. Our beautiful yard. I mean, it really is stunning and amazing. And they asked me if I would like to come and rent it. So that was, you know, it was really exciting. It was a fresh start. It was a new office. It was just a new challenge. There wasn't really the horsepower to fill it, but it was a fresh start in some way.
Yeah.
So, you know, I couldn't have too much to moan about. Every time I went somewhere and came back and drove up our drive to see what we had was inspirational. And, you know, I did still have owners there and some lovely owners. And so I did kind of keep chugging along, but it was like the hamster wheel was turning, but the hamster was dead in the nicest possible way, if that's not
Oh. The hamster was in hibernation for a few months. That's all it was. No, that does make sense, because it's difficult, isn't it? Sometimes it's almost like your mind wants to protect you from potential hurt and pain that could happen. It sort of goes into survival mode. So I do totally understand what you mean. In terms of the next couple of years, I think it's safe to say there were a few very nice young horses that started to come into the yard and picking up some good results along the way as well. I mean, the likes of EquiRatings Echo was at that point in sort of 2014, 2015. C. Patrick Dark Cruise, who was a winner at 4-star level as well.
Yeah.
Did the love start to reignite?
Yes, it did, and I was very grateful to the lovely Jane McGiven, who she was another one that she was the only one that came up to me at the end of 2012 to say she would like to have a horse with me, and I thought she was a lunatic then, and she's still a lunatic now, but in just the best way. And do you know what? It was the start of something really quite special. She really was an unbelievable supporter of mine, and I didn't know her at all before then. So that was, you know, I have a lot to thank her for, to be honest, because yes, she was. She brought Quarry Crest Echo as a 6-year-old, and yes, we did. I mean, we had, you know, she's a very enthusiastic person, so she was keen to go somewhere. So that was helpful to get, you know, a kick up the arse and just get on with it and let's go places and enjoy her horses. But I would have thought the biggest turning point for me was in 2016. It was the Rio Olympics, and I definitely didn't have anything up for that one. And, you know, I've been with Tom now for a few years, and I'm getting an old bird in some ways. So I, you know, we had the conversation that, you know, I've always thought I would love to be a mum. We thought, well, you know, what will be will be. There's absolutely no planning or anything. And so, but yes, you know, I did fall pregnant. And I ended up missing a whole season, which seems fairly crazy looking back at it, but it was a whole year by the time, you know, the season started, and I was 5 months gone. And I thought, what's the point starting when they might as well go and be with the horses, might as well go and be with other riders. And then I had complications when he was born, so I was not back on, you know, for the end of the season. So it was a full year out, and actually probably that, as much of a disaster as I thought it was at the beginning, was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, of just coming off that hamster wheel, just having a step back out of the sport. I didn't miss it at all once I'd realised that all horses and owners were all okay. I have to say, every owner I had at that time when I told them were absolutely brilliant, you know, just delighted for me, very excited. And it was the start of something new. After that, you know, through the year, my owners became such brilliant friends, really close. I had a lovely team of horses that either went to very good people, great friends that helped me out to ride them. I loved sitting on the fence for a while and looking in at other people's setups, other people's lives. Little did I know that I have exactly the same insecurities and worries, and as every other rider. Just when you think that person's brilliant or that person's brilliant and they have no worries, it's amazing once you start getting more involved and chatting to people about your horses that we all have exactly the same worries and problems and difficulties. So it was great. I also realised that every bloody event rider is impossible to get hold of on the telephone at any time. Finally, when I wasn't riding and was sat still all day, or I had a phone on me, it was like, I can't get hold of anyone ever.
Why won't you answer my calls? Yeah.
And do you know, it was brilliant. It was the Olympics had been, you know, was on that year, and there was a few people that missed out on the Olympics through their horses being lame. and horses that I thought were favourites to go and win. I think Wesco missed out with Tim Price, and lots of great combinations that you thought, gosh, they could go and win a medal, and you sort of just tiny little bits come back at you that do you know what, this does actually happen. And I rate Tim Price is one of the best horsemen, best riders. Wesco is one of the best combinations. And I would never sit there for a second and think, oh, God, what did he do wrong for that to happen?
Yes, yeah.
And, exactly the same with Cheltenham. I sat there watching Cheltenham, and Willie Mullins had 4 favourites out of Cheltenham through injuries or something. And you think, oh, my God, that's a disaster. But, he's unbelievable. And you wouldn't for a second sit there and think, oh, he's suddenly gone into Cheltenham not caring about what he does with his horses before he gets there or whatever. And totally the opposite. It's just how it is. So it's quite good to just see, have a kick up the arse, to be honest. Don't look backwards, look forwards. This happens. It was just a shit time. It never rains but it pours if you're having a bad time, and you just gotta keep going through it. And I think having a break, having time away from it, coming back after Max, once I was all fine with absolutely zero pressure. I think a few people thought, are you even going to come back? To then have just some nice horses around kicking away at home, and a whole winter to just try and just sort of enjoy it again. And I have to say, I absolutely just loved riding horses again for brilliant people. And the fire then just started to light a bit of just wanting to go out and have a good time. And my mindset just changed. I very much stayed in my bubble of doing my thing. I wasn't, mentally, I just worked on not looking outside of that, of what other people are doing or what I should be doing or what I need to be doing to meet these targets or that targets or get to Badminton or get to Europeans or something. It was like, I'm just going to stay in the individual bubbles with each horse and just go and enjoy it. And it's going to take me where it wants to take me. And I just started to really enjoy it again. I was still the same competitive person and liked it even more, I've liked it even more having Max. I'm doing something for him as well. I want him one day to think, I was, that he's proud or whatever. And, I did do what I wanted to do. And I'd sort of say the same to him and, just keep looking forward. So sort of worrying about everything else and have a kick up the arse and get on with it.
And I imagine having a toddler at home, a new baby and a toddler that was growing up, they do something new every day. And there's that sort of real life distraction that if something hasn't gone to plan out on the yard, actually you go home and they don't know that. They just love you the same as they loved you in the morning.
Yeah, totally. It's so leveling, to be honest. It was just, it was a completely different world. You still work as hard. It's just different. And you have to time management and manage your time. You're not out on the yard as much, but I've got an unbelievable team and a great girl, Amy Phillips, who's, just been a godsend to me. She is a wonderful girl, who's been my travelling groom, who, I've got so much to thank her for because she's just absolutely brilliant, which takes quite a lot of, bit of stress and worry away. And but just a lovely team. Just she's great, but I've got a fabulous team around her that have been very loyal and stayed here, and we just have a good time. It's a good atmosphere and it's fun, but it's we all work hard, so it
makes all the difference.
It does.
From 2017, a certain mare came back into your yard that actually I think you'd ridden early on in her career by the name of Veneer Chimera, who had been with Paul Tapner. Izzy Taylor had briefly had the ride, had been with Paul Tapner up to 5-star level. Paul was hanging up his sort of eventing boots as such, and she made her way back to you. I know that she had previously been with you, hadn't she?
Yeah, she was as a very young, I think she was a 6-year-old. I think I did her hundreds, her pre-novices, and one novice. And so I think that was just 1 year or something I had her. And she was fine. She was a very weak, younger horse. And she went to Izzy then after me, and Izzy did great, as Izzy does, battered up through the grades and had some great form on her. But then she went to Paul Tapner, who then took a 4-star and 5-star. And I think they had a couple of good years, really, to be honest. Badminton and Burley, they did. And
top 20s.
Yeah, and then Paul said he was retiring, and Trevor Dickens, who has owned her all the way through, rang me back to say, would I have her back? And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know, because I couldn't believe, to be honest, that she had got to 5-star in the first place. So I was like, oh, I don't know, Trevor, I'll try. So yes, it was very strange, to be honest, to have her back. And yeah, she's a funny little thing, to be honest. But I mean, she's a game little girl, but I didn't, yes, I clicked with her. She went out and she felt fine, but she's certainly not very inspiring at the one days.
Does she come into her own when she goes to those big 5-stars? I mean, she was second at Burley that year of 2017 when you'd taken her on. She went on the first 5-star you did with her. She finished as runner-up. Does she sort of get a little extra sparkle when she knows that it's the big occasion?
Definitely. And she's really good. She's much better when I've got a week with just her. If I take her with, a few others at one days, and it's all, you don't have so much of the time and things. But she does, I think, the crowds, maybe she likes. Having said that, she's quite a hot horse, and she's worried, when she walks up to, she's quite a worrier walking up to the dressage or the main arena. She's quite high maintenance to keep right, but I think she's just one of those that just has it in the heart. To be honest, they sort of seem to know when the time is. But she does also feel completely different to when she does, on the cross country around the bigger tracks. Suddenly a very scopy horse comes out, and she loves it, and it's just a very different feel to what it is at the one day. So I'm glad Paul Tapner had tried around them first. If I'd still been doing OIs, I'd have just been like, no,
she's okay.
No way, she's going to clear the Cotswolds Leap or whatever it is. But no, he definitely said when he handed her over, he was like, she's definitely a 5-star horse. And I was like, okay.
You sure?
Yeah, are you sure? But what a, she's been fab, hasn't she? What a sweet
her 5-star record now. In her last, I mean, she was second at Burley last year. She won Badminton last year. The year before, 5th at Burley. Badminton didn't go to plan, but the year before that was 2nd at Burley. So in her last, 5-star, she's had 4 top 5s. It is quite amazing. Can we talk about that Badminton win? Because I know anybody listening to this show and anybody that knows your story will have been rooting for you over what has been a really tough few years. And it kind of came full circle at Badminton last year, and the fairy tale of winning on Veneer Chimera came true. How was it? How was that week as a whole going into it? Did you feel like you were just loving it? Was there any pressure at this point?
No, I don't think I really felt a lot of pressure, apart from what I was putting under myself, really, to be honest. I thought she could have done very well the year before, but had a funny fall at the water, which she'd done a 25 dressage, and she was flying around. No one was getting the time. The ground was a bit tacky, and I knew it would probably suit her. And she was on the time, and she was absolutely flying. And so I came away from that event thinking, oh God, that was, could nearly have been very different, because I think it ended up being won on a 28 or 29, I think, that year. And so you sort of start thinking, gosh, she could be close one time, but is it ever going to happen? can it ever happen or whatever? But you just keep, especially with her, and I keep going back to it, but I do have to just stay very much in my bubble with her, take every step of the way, to keep making the whole week happen. She tries quite hard in the dressage, but there is a very fine line of it being good and it being not quite very good. She's not a natural mover. She's a nice mover, but she's a mare that finds it difficult and quite sensitive, and I find bloody hard to keep straight and all those sorts of things. So there is always such a really fine line of just trying to cross the T's and dot the I's, and so I was delighted. I was number 32, I think, and she did a 26 point something, and she just did a clear round. She didn't feel like, you probably never looked up once when she was doing her test and thought, oh my God, this is amazing. But she, just didn't make any mistakes. Her halts were good. She got the changes. She just was good. She smiled. Her ears were pricked, which is handy because, just looks like then she's has the present. Yeah, it does help. It does help with her because if they come, she overthinks and overtries, her facial expression can knock the mark as well. Like, just everything has to go as well as it can for her to get the mark. So I was delighted with that. And I think she ended up being third after dressage after the 2 days. So I was like, let's, crack on. But you never for a second dare to dream that you can do this. I, again, just went into the cross country and just thought, because I'm always a little bit slow, I can, just always be a few seconds over, and I hadn't quite nailed the whole just getting inside the time. And so I thought, if I'm having a nice time, I'm not going fast enough. So give her another kick, keep going. And I was clearly having a nice time sometimes because I was 2 seconds over, but she was brilliant. She was just great. She's just such a little tiger, and off she goes. She's fab. So, and she came out of it really well. And so then, second, I think we were going into the show jumping, and but Oliver was quite a way ahead, the 7 point something or something, and so you think to yourself, could you do this? And then it's like, no, probably not. And the next day we went and walked the show jumping, obviously, the next day, and I thought, definitely not, absolutely not. So, but you do what you can. We tried as hard as we could to get the warm up right, and her on, she felt fab from the day after, but all credit to her as well. I think she just sort of knew how important that day was, and she was brilliant, but never in a million would I build that track anywhere else, and she would jump it round and leave the jumps up. So I was just gobsmacked, to be honest. I was fairly numb once I jumped the last and looked up at the clock and saw 0, 0, 0, 0 all the way along. I didn't get time falls, didn't have a rail down. I was like, you're kidding me. And I just remember leaning down her neck at the time and just giving her a pat and just sort of saying, I can't believe you just did that. And just gave her a nice pat, and then looked up sort of ahead of me and punched the air, and the crowd just gave such a big cheer, and so I did it again and did it again. And they were so supportive. I just felt, whatever happened, that little moment was my badminton. I never for a second even then thought I would win. How proud you are of your teammate, a little horse like that has just put its guts on the line for you all week and just given you absolutely everything. I was just, for me as a horse person, as a trainer, as a sporting person as well, that was the biggest, bestest feeling that I got from the whole thing, of just that moment in the ring there and having the support from the crowd of everyone cheering, and what a special little horse. So I was just delighted. That was probably the best feeling coming out of the ring then of what she had done. And so, 5 minutes later, when Claire Balding turned to me and said that you've won, I was like, oh my goodness.
How did you find out? Did you even dream that Oliver would? I mean, he had 7 point something marks in hand over you. Did you even dream that actually? I think he had about 5. He had over a fence, so he could have afforded a pole down and 3 seconds over, but not 4, which is what he had. Did you think that could happen, or were you very much just celebrating what had been an amazing result either way for you?
I was outside, and to be honest, just having a cuddle with little Max, because obviously we'd done Kentucky and Badminton back to back, and he hadn't come with me to those, and he came. He'd been brought to Badminton on the Sunday, and I said, "Can you just keep him away from me till I've just finished my show jumping?" Till I've just got done. And so he was the first thing, I was just having, a big cuddle with him once I'd finished, thinking, how lucky I was, to be honest, to, be able to do what I do and have my little boy there and all the rest of it. And no, I didn't. You know that anything can happen, so you just sort of sit there and wait. In my own mind, I was satisfied because I'd done everything I could do. To be honest, you thought Oliver was the winner all week. He was on unbelievable form, and his horses, the grey horse just looked, incredible. And he'd won Kentucky the weekend before, and he was everyone's winner in their mind. So you sort of thought not a chance, but in sport that anything can happen. And so I was sort of in my own little world, but not a million miles away. And I knew that he'd had a fence, because you hear the crowd gasp. And then you sort of started to just see on the corner of the screen, because there was a screen not far away, that he had gone into the red on time and he'd not got to the last fence, and I knew it was pretty close. So you sort of, just sit there waiting, and he jumped to the last, and then Claire turned to me and was like, "You've won." I was like, "Oh my goodness." Oh my goodness. No one would have thought that. But it was, it's just sport and it's life, and just desperately close. I mean, for Oliver, I think it was a quarter of a second or something. But, there was someone looking down, obviously, that day that said, "You know what, today's your day." And it's just how it is. These margins are so ridiculously close in our sport now, and it just fell my way.
It was the most emotional victory. I don't think I've seen a more popular winner of badminton for a very, very, very long time, because I think there were a lot of people that had sort of felt the pain over the last few years and were so willing you to do well. And it was a very, very popular victory. Going on from badminton, it then marked a big surprise party in the summer, which I've already said, I love a love story. And your badminton celebration party actually turned into a double celebration with your wedding as well.
Yeah, it did. We've been engaged for a few years. We tried to talk about getting married every now and then, which every time the subject's brought up, we quickly move on to something else. Even though we do want to get married, we just had no idea how to do it. And neither of us are particularly into the massive, loads and loads of people sort of thing. And we just didn't know, it's impossible to do, to try, keeping everyone happy and all the rest of it. And after badminton, the response was so amazing, and everyone kept saying, "You've got to have a party. You've got to have a party." And so I went to Chatsworth the weekend after badminton, and Tom and I came back in the car together, and I said, "I think we should have a party for winning badminton, because it's been so amazing and people have just been so supportive and brilliant. And I think we should do it for all the people that have made this possible, that have been part of my life, my career, very current at the minute. And, but then halfway through turn it into a wedding, but it's a complete surprise. Nobody knows that we're going to do it. We could only get 100 people into our church, we found out. So then we were like, okay, that's what it is. 100 people come, which was a nightmare trying to just get to 100 people when you think of all, so many people have. So I'm sure there's still, I look back now and think, oh gosh, I should have had this person or that person or whatever. But that's how it is, just how it was. And it was unbelievable, though. It was such a brilliant day. And it was, we had 100 people come. It started off as the badminton party. So they arrived in the middle of the afternoon. We're there for an hour drinking champagne. And then I did a speech to say thank you to everyone for making badminton possible and all the rest of it. And then I thanked Tom last. He was the last person I thanked, of which then I start crying like a baby and looking like and then once I stopped crying, I sort of said, and while we've got everyone here, we're wondering if you'd join us down the church because we'd love to get married. With that, then everyone went nuts and there was a great cheer. And at that moment, we had 2 double-decker buses come up the drive, of which everyone jumped on. I went and changed dress quickly. And 20 minutes later, we were in the church getting married. And it was just such a cool day.
Absolutely amazing. The fairy tale continued. I honestly, you could get me in tears. I love a love story. Piggy, I'm very aware that I could literally talk to you for hours and hours and hours on end. But going into Tokyo 2021, that you've got a really, really good team of horses in the yard. Obviously, 2020 hasn't sort of played out as we thought it would play out. Last year, topping it all off was that sort of record-breaking year. EquiRatings love following you for a stat and had been sort of tracking the international wins through the year, tallying them up. I remember being at Bergam and getting very overexcited as another one ticked the box. And 15 international wins, which gave you more wins in a season internationally than any other rider in recent years. So the team of horses going into 2021 is formidable. Do you feel, I mean, I'm not going to ask a stupid question and say, do you want to go to Tokyo? Because I'm sure you do. Do you feel the pressure, or are you actually really just still enjoying it?
Yeah, no, I don't feel the pressure. I think I'm very much now, what will be, will be. I am naturally very competitive, but I'm also, realistic, and you're either good enough to go or you're not, really. I mean, but it is going to be hard with there just being 3 places. And so, you're either there performing very well and your horse is sound, and, you hopefully are in with the running. But if you're not quite good enough, then we probably won't get a chance to go. But I mean, it would be great. I would love to get to an Olympics. It's something I haven't done, and it's on every sports person's list of something they would love to do. But again, like I said before, London, I'd love to go knowing that I had prepared well enough, going there good enough to think you've got a chance, if all goes to plan, of being there within a medal place, not just thinking I want to go to an Olympics to tick a box. So it would, I just want to get the horses on as good a form as possible. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But I'm not going nuts anymore about it.
What will be, will be.
What will be, will be.
I have no doubt that if it doesn't happen next year, that it will happen in the future. And I'm absolutely sure that me, alongside a lot of people listening to this, will be cheering you on and really rooting for you and following your progress. Just give our listeners a horse to watch in your yard. I mean, that's like picking a favorite child, but just somebody or a horse that they can follow going into the back end of 2020 and into 2021.
Does it have to
You
be
can
a young
name
one?
more than one. You can name more than one.
Cool.
I mean, just drop
Cool.
a few in. It doesn't matter.
Okay, cool.
To be honest,
Cool.
you can make the rules.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, Brookfield Innocent is a very, very good horse. And I'm really excited about trying to, up him to the next level and see what comes out with him. He's a really super horse, and I love him to bits. He can be very spooky, and so he's hard enough to get totally right, but he's a great horse. So I'm really excited of what comes for him over the next few years, and getting to 5-star with him. And another horse who I'm really fond of is a young horse called Cooley Lancer, who won the sixes at Le Lion last year. So he's a 7-year-old this year. He's just a really cool horse. He's a good jumper, and he's just a great horse to work with. I think he will be a horse that just loves jumping around bigger tracks. I don't think, and doing the changes and being a higher level horse, I think he will be. I don't know that we'll be able to regain our Leon title this year as a 7-year-old, even though we'll try if it runs. But he's a great horse, and he's I'm lucky to have him, and he's just a lot of fun.
Okay, that's two. I know, I will just say, Tom did mention the words Brookfield Innocent and Burley in the same sentence to me once. So that could be something to watch in the next couple of years, definitely. There is a whole host of horses. I mean, I could quiz you on them all because you have a really, really strong team.
I'd probably miss some out, to be honest.
I mean, there's Dargan.
Yeah.
He's a new ride for you this year and has been up to 5-star level. That's an exciting one as well.
Yeah, he is. And, Emily's done a great job with him. And so, he's initially with me just to sort of having to be sold, but we've done nothing. So we're going to enjoy him at the minute. But he's a really cool horse. He's great fun, but I've done nothing with him yet, but he's a lovely little character. There's lots. I mean, to be honest, none of us have done anything, have we, in 2020? No. So it'll just be interesting to get out. There's sort of only so much you can do at home that you think it all feels good, but you've just got to get to the competition and start testing it and see what you have got. But
see how it will play.
Yeah, I've got some lovely horses, and it's easy for me getting out of bed to go to work when you've got as nice horses as I've got in the stables.
Well, we will be looking forward to watching their progress back end of this year and into next year. But I think one thing we will take, what will be, and Piggy, nobody would be more delighted for you. And I'm sure all of our podcast listeners will be cheering you on. So a huge thank you for coming onto the show and talking to us about your career.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this very special episode of the EquiRatings Eventing Podcast. Do stay tuned and get in touch with us. Don't forget, at Eventing Podcast across Facebook, across Twitter, Instagram, and we will be back very soon. But in the meantime, thank you for listening.
There you go, listeners. Another classic show on the EquiRatings Eventing Podcast. Loads more where those came from, to be honest, because I think we're nearing 1,000 episodes. So if you're thinking, have you ever done a show with a certain rider or a certain guest or on a certain topic, give it a Google, send us a message, pop into, I was going to say slide into our DMs on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. We'll send you any links we think you might like, and check it out, because there are tons of shows and there are some real golden oldies out there as well. So look, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have to get her back on the show again soon. Lots to talk about over the last few years, to be fair.